It's nice to meet you, Olivier. Thanks for sitting in. And I do this podcast about art film, independent films here. So this is perfect. And I've long been, a fan of your work and enjoyed many of your films, and filled in one or two recently. I saw Cold Water. For instance, I missed the screening here at the Film Society, unfortunately, but I got to see it, and I even see some through line between that film and The Clouds of Sils Maria.
Did you see it? No, you didn't. Is there a subtitled version of it, or it's like on the internet you find it on subtitled?
It was subtitled.
That's cool because to my knowledge, I mean, there's no subtitled DVD, which is really a drag. So it must be some kind of
one day,
internet source or whatever.
Probably.
Yeah, no.
I can't discuss it legally.
It's very good. Yeah, it's complicated.
Exactly, it is complicated. The legal,
the legal issues with the film are complicated. Yeah,
the morass, as we call it.
It's because it's a long and stupid story. Like the film was bought. I mean, the film ended up owned by Universal, who never sold it. They got it by accident. Like the sales company who owned the right to the international film, went bankrupt a month after.
Oh, really?
So it's the titles they had acquired ended up with.
They inherited it.
Exactly, they inherited, and they kind of they sat on it for 10 years.
And it was your first film.
After, so they would not even answer the guys who wanted to release the film, make DVDs, whatever. They couldn't care less. Until finally their rights expired, so the film reverted to the French producer. But at that point, the music rights had expired. Geez. So all of a sudden, you had to buy again the music rights.
And that's very expensive.
That's very expensive.
Yeah. And you were probably still struggling, I'm guessing, even then, years later. It takes a while to build a career.
Yeah, we kind of know who owns what. I mean, except that, it's the money we're offering is not relevant because we're talking, about a very small indie film which has the potential for a video release here and there. So it's really even. So it's so that's the story.
Le Froid. C'est formidable.
So are we waiting for this to be turned off?
Well, just hug the... Yeah, I don't know what's going on. If you hear a little buzz in the background, what you're hearing is an air conditioner that is way too loud. Olivier's kind. He's being very kind. He's dealing with the folks here. We're at the Trump Hotel talking to Olivier Assayas, who probably has more... You have...
Sorry, they had to do it from a system in the basement,
Okay. Well, just talk closer, Olivier, if you don't mind. We'll make the best of it, and maybe in the magic of post-production, I'll give it to your sound guy, who does your sound direction. So I was thinking also this last week, one of our famous.
Great.
Yeah, that's great. One of our famous theater legends died, Marion Seldes. I saw the
obituary today,
and there was so much a flooding of and as a New Yorker, I grew up in New York, going to the theater all the time. It was very inexpensive, and I saw her a number of times growing up, but that was her career. So it was this realizing, and whenever now you look at the Broadway, and things on a lot of plays, is they stock them with big name Hollywood stars. Yeah. And there's something lost in that. I mean, there's a lot of talented people, of course, that are in these roles that are, but it's changed the whole way that we perceive theater, and the reason why there are these long lines of tourists on the, outside of the theaters waiting to get tickets and whatnot. And it was just reminded me. I was thinking of this throughout Clouds of Sils Maria because there's such a this conflict or tension that you've built in there, and between this old European sensibility to theater, to literature, and pop culture, Western American culture, and the two really kind of rub up against each other here in a very, very sort of very present way. I don't know if you want to sort of just talk about how much of that was a conscious thing.
Well, it's. I think that I was certainly not trying to make a statement or whatever of the sort. I was trying to represent reality.
Yeah.
I was trying to represent things as they seem to be now. I mean, and listening to you, yes, I mean, I'm kind of realizing, or I don't know, maybe focusing on an aspect of the film, which is I've been also trying to represent the situation of theater today. I mean, in a sense that yes, you have talented directors who, if they want to have a big visible production, will use big names from the movies.
But it gets financing.
And it's really I think it's one. I mean the male lead in the film, who is the director, Klaus, he's presented as a talented, famous, young director, and he's very serious about his art and so on and so forth. But then we also see at the end of the film that he's not completely indifferent to celebrity culture, because when all of a sudden this kind of media scandal erupts, and all of a sudden it's what everybody is discussing, forgetting about what's actually going on in the play. He's part of the circus. I mean, he pretends he hates it, but ultimately he's having fun with it. So, and that's more or less where we're at.
Yeah, but it's interesting that Juliette Binoche plays Maria Enders, right? Who is with this play you mentioned. It's a revival. In the original cast, she was the younger role, and now they're reviving the play, and now she is struggling with taking the role or of processing this role in her mind of taking the older role. But there's also something else that has changed. When she did the younger role, she was, I assume, even though this is in the backstory, she was not well known. She was a young actress, just starting off in her career.
Absolutely.
And then and who was sort of in love with her director, or maybe perhaps, or what have you. But then or co-star. And then now in the present time, she's a very famous actress, and sort of that's a big part of the story in terms of how people perceive her.
Well, yes, she's like Juliette Binoche. It's Juliette Binoche playing Juliette Binoche. Yeah.
But that's your point in some sense, right? And there's Juliette Binoche, who the character is really an extension of, if I said that correctly. I know there's a lot going on there with that. So I just wonder why you make a movie where, as you said in the Q&A, after your press and industry screening, you said, yes, this was a movie where you were conscious of the actors' roles and also the people playing those roles, of the real-life actors.
Yeah.
So you always are aware on some level that this is Kristen and Juliette.
Sure.
Why?
Well, it's okay. So it's many different questions actually, but
I can probably do a better job. But I was scared of forgetting, so I let it all out at once. That's
I totally understand what you mean. It's one side of it is, yes, the actress who is playing today the part that Juliette played 30 years back or 25 years back or whenever, she's like those kind of starlets who are famous for internet scandals and so on and so forth, on top of whatever they do on film or on the stage. So yes, that has changed in a sense that celebrity culture has transformed society. It has transformed theater. It has transformed movie making. But it also has transformed the craft of acting. Meaning that when you did not have the internet, an actress lived two lives. One life as a person in the real world, dealing with the real world, and on the other side, some kind of fantasy life on the screen, or representing, portraying this or that character. It was complex enough. Now you have like a third layer. You have like the media personality of the actress. You have a very specific. You are on top of whatever you do. In terms of your acting, you have this kind of persona. You have this other person, this avatar on the internet, which has a life of its own via the fans, the likes, don't likes, whatever. It's so in that sense, the identity of actresses has changed. It has evolved. And someone like, Joanne, the very young character that Cloë Moretz portrays, juggles with that. It's her world, it's her culture, it's her identity. She doesn't question it. She speaks she naturally speaks the language.
She doesn't know anything else either.
She doesn't know anything else. Whereas, yes, of course, a character like Juliette, alias Maria Enders, she comes from some kind of, serious background, from pre-internet acting.
Pre-digital, too.
Pre-digital, too, of course. And so she kind of has her roots in a very different world. And she's adapting like we all adapt. But still, her values are not exactly the same, and her perspective on the present is not exactly the same.
And I see it by your casting now, by casting that particular actress, by casting Cloë Moretz. She, too, is exactly as you described her character in this, that she she kind of started off with action comedy in the digital age. And
of course, but it's really an important element in the film, because the film is basically a comedy. I mean, it's trying at least to be funny. I mean, it's a bittersweet comedy. It has
there's some satire in there.
It has its satirical elements, but it's part of what the film is about is that Juliette is playing someone that's pretty close to her, that Kristen Stewart is playing someone who is ultimately very different from her, but gives a specific angle on herself, and Chloe is playing with the kind of person she could be, and that a lot of actresses of her generation have become. So we all integrate when we are watching the film the perspective those actresses have on their part. So what I am saying is that it's usually when you make a movie, you try to erase that layer. You hope that your audience will forget about this or that actor and will be interested in the human emotions of the character you are depicting. That all of us the audience forgets about the actress. Here, I'm concerned that the audience does not forget about the actress. That part of the fun you can have from watching the film is having in mind that you are actually watching those actresses.
So you're having a much more
material.
I'm sorry. So you're having much more of an active dialogue with your audience in a way. The film is.
I think it's what I love in movies, and in a movie like this one, I think it works. It works because it's you have this constant back and forth.
What's so uncomfortable, and I don't mean in a bad way, like the Kristen Stewart character Valentina says, rather the actress said afterwards. See, I'm mixing it up. Exactly what you wanted. I'm mixing up her character with her. No, Kristen Stewart said in the Q&A also. That she likes being uncomfortable. I think something along those lines.
Yes,
paraphrasing.
she said that.
She feels she likes that, and which is, by the way,
actors like that. Actors like to be challenged.
Yeah.
The better actors are happy when they are out of their comfort zone. And
the better ones,
and it's very much what Juliette is about, and it's very much what Kristen is about. Not all actresses are like that.
No,
but a lot of actors would be reluctant, would be scared, would be whatever.
It's interesting that this particular actress, Juliette Binoche, too, because I was talking to Bruno Dumont recently, who you may have heard of, but he cast Juliette in his last film.
Yes.
Camille Claudel, 1914 or 1915.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said that he normally casts non-professional actors, and so, but he said that I said, well, aren't the professional actors a little bit uncomfortable working with non-professionals and worried about how they're perceived? No, he said the ones that really are interested in how that all the challenges that brings them, because
I think that everybody, let's say that a lot of people have an instinct for acting, and a lot of them are not actors. When I shot Carlos, it was a mixture of stage actors, famous movie stars in their own culture, and guys who had never seen a camera, who had never been in front of a camera, and it all functioned as one. It was extremely simple, easy to mix.
You're discarding your own.
It's really what ended up being exciting about the whole process.
Yeah. Well, 5 hours. Thanks, by the way. No, I loved it. So you take what we're talking about, this sort of complex admixture of pop fame and different generations of actors who come from different places, and you set this though, and they're all on iPads and phones and right, computers are everywhere, TVs. It's funny. There's a moment early on when they walk into the hotel and Kristen tells the person in the hotel, turn off the TV because it might interrupt. I don't know. It just sticks out of my mind. Mm-hmm. But a little moment. But it's all set in the backdrop of this huge landscape of the Alps where this takes place, which also just it creates this weird juxtaposition. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's
why not set it in Paris? Why not set it in or in Lausanne, some city?
I think it's what I obviously did not want.
Right.
It's because I didn't want to make it local. I think that if the film had been shot in French, in France, like in Paris or in the suburbs or whatever, it would give it a very limited perspective. I think what I was interested in is using those very universal, basic, simple emotions and, just deal with with what they have that is essential to anybody's identity. Time passing, aging. We all deal with that constantly. So it's not a small issue. It's a big issue. So let's try and have it echo in some kind of. Let's try to take it to some kind of wider perspective. And I knew it was going to be a lot about the rehearsal, so a lot of talking and so on and so forth. So let's try and it's more interesting to have it in a beautiful landscape than to have it in an apartment in Paris or something in front of a wall. But it's not only about the beautiful landscape. It's those specific landscapes which are both beautiful and problematic. Problematic, not exactly problematic, but still. It's a landscape with a past. It's a landscape with a history. It's a landscape that's inhabited by writers, thinkers, artists, and which all have to do with the history of Central Europe in the 20th century, at the end of the 19th century. So all of a sudden, it's a landscape that is inhabited by the ghosts of modern history, and of course that's embodied in the film by the clouds, the snake, which is not just benevolent; it's also malevolent.
There was something. The snakes are never benevolent in terms of how we perceive them literarily, or
So it's not just a beautiful landscape. It's a landscape that is inhabited. That's something that is dangerous, and it has been filmed like in the 1920s by Arnold Fanck. Beautiful short documentary about clouds. Arnold Fanck, he was also one of the filmmakers of the Nazi era.
Right.
He directed Leni Riefenstahl, and he's let's say that the evolution of his art and of his politics is not something that's extremely seductive. So it's you have that dark side of European history that is present in a way or another in those landscapes.
Yeah, I mean, we know that this other famous Maria from the movies escaped over the Alps from Austria, at least in The Sound of Music. But I don't know if that area had a lot of people fleeing National Socialism.
No, not at that.
No, okay, because there would be that kind of part to it.
That's Austria.
So is the Clouds of Sils Maria, and is that how you pronounce it, Sils, or is it Sils? The Clouds of Sils Maria. Is this, in a way, a passage film for you too, as a filmmaker? I don't want to get too philosophical, I suppose, but why not? The film is very philosophical.
It's no, not really. No? I think it's well.
They're all. I guess they're all.
Every single film is a step, hopefully forward. But it's
forward. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you learn. I mean, you learn from the movies you make. You learn about the world. You learn about your craft, whatever. But it's. I think it's it's not a movie that I can extend into something that would be like, some kind of elaboration of whatever I've been trying to deal with in this film. I mean, this is pretty much a world on its own, and it makes me want to move elsewhere. I had wanted for a long time to make a movie about actresses, about acting. I was not sure to find the right way to handle it, and now ultimately I think I found a way how to handle it because I had the perfect cast for this film. That's one side of it, and also because I understood that it did not have to be about theater or cinema, but it had to be about humanity. It was what was interesting in representing an actress is just showing someone struggling with how to understand the emotions of someone else. I mean, you're just trying to find deep within herself what the pain of someone else. Mm-hmm. And I think it's fascinating. I think it's beautiful, and it's really what makes the craft of acting such a deep experience, such an important human experience.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stories that we see and read, the actress has the struggle. The struggle is taking the role of the older person because of their ego, mm-hmm. and what that message sends out to their audience. The audience is out in the In this case, though, it was an issue of her mortality that she had to accept on some level. Where this really is me, at this age, yes, and yes. I'm on the other side, and it's scary and unsettling.
It's
Juliette Binoche.
I think aging has become a slightly different thing. In the sense that people stay like teenagers for much longer. I mean, there's much less difference between grown-up culture and teenage culture. There's much less difference between high and low art. I mean, that kind of thing. So it's when you are dealing with an actress aging, you're filming Juliette Binoche. Juliette is by no standard an older woman. She has like possibly her greatest work ahead of her, and someone like Isabelle Huppert, or so many great French actresses, and so many actresses of our best actresses.
Yeah, so Jean Moreau comes to mind.
We're not even talking about Jean Moreau, who is in her 80s. I don't know. But it's
your coffee, sir.
So what I am. If I want to deal with time passing, if I want to deal with aging, it's not so much a question of aging, it's more the question of turning a new leaf, opening a new chapter. Okay. And that's something everybody has to do once in a while.
Very sure. Very true.
You don't have to be an actor or an actress. It's something that's just you in your life. You gradually become someone else. I mean, you change. I mean, it's part of the process of life. That's
right. Go ahead. And we also, while it's hot, we also, interestingly, I think we are so set on creating this way of processing the change that you just described, but by around these big life events and benchmarks, like the birth of a child or the death of a parent. But truthfully, sometimes they happen in much subtler ways, where all of a sudden you realize you're changing in some profound way because you're for whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I am saying is those things, but it's more the idea that we function by benchmarks, but it's but the thing is that when you're an actress, it's more brutal, because when you are an actress, it's pretty obvious that you are filmed and then your face is just like blown up on this huge screen. That doesn't happen to you, doesn't happen to me, but actors are like scrutinized, every wrinkle, every tiny nuance of their aging is something that's blown up out of proportion, and they have to deal with that. So the issue of aging, or the issue of just opening a new chapter, is something that's more brutal. It's something they have to face, and they have to they don't have the luxury of just somehow seamlessly passing from one situation to another. Often it's cruel. It can be cruel, but again, doesn't have to do with the fact of becoming an older person. It's the fact of accepting that you're the new person you are becoming.
Right, I understand. Right. And you made this one in English. I guess it was just a practical choice.
No. It was absolutely no. To me, it was like one of the key decisions in approaching this film. It was from the start. For exactly the same reason why I decided not to shoot this film in a Paris apartment. I thought it was more interesting to deal with the culture as it is now in global terms, meaning because if I had made the film in France, it would have been very insular. Now I'm making a film about an actress who has an international career. That means that she's playing in whatever Hollywood blockbuster one day, the next day she's on the stage in London or wherever in some kind of serious play. That's how actors function today. That's the reality. And the reality they are confronted to is, of course, so the kids who grow up acting in those blockbuster movies and becoming huge stars, and it's all of a sudden, instead of dealing with with the psychology of an actress, I'm dealing with how this whole issue of the world changing around us relates to everybody in a way or another, in a much wider, in a much bigger way, and also in ways anybody can relate to. Everybody understands how the language has changed. Everybody understands how cinema has changed. Everybody understands how the media culture is taking over. And how it's hard to keep some kind of decency and to protect yourself from its worst aspects.
Well, the director Olivier Assayas, and the film is called "The Clouds of Sils Maria." It's great to finally meet you and talk to you, even though I feel like that went by very quickly. So thank you very much for that.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.